Breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. Secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. What you really want. Don't go back to sleep. What you really want.
In this age of technology, kind of omnipotence that comes with it, where we can be all places at all times, and time seems to disappear, where everything has gotten so fast and speedy, and we can be anywhere and do anything pretty quickly in terms of information. And I was thinking or feeling the loss of our connection to nature and cycles and the elements, how vulnerable we are. So I created these 4 women, very vulnerable, naked, that represents the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. The others are very much inside of beings, inside of coffin-like boxes. This first one being water, and this is a turtle shell that someone sent me. I get lots of stuff in the mail. And that flips up, and then there's a second face. And this one is fire, and she is what she is, nothing hidden. This is earth, and there are several layers to this one. So the first face and the innermost face. And the last one, the most recent, is air. I never know what I'm doing when I start. I call it wandering. I wander with an openness, and to know is, again, propaganda. If I knew and did it, I wouldn't trust it. I can't feel good about that kind of creation anymore. It just doesn't work for me. It's almost like if I'm not thrown off my idea, then I don't trust it. It doesn't feel honest enough somehow. And so in other words, to be able to say, I don't know, as hard as that is for some of us, I think the best of everything comes out of that. So this piece I call Faces of Eve. And opening this little locket gets the faces turning. It used to be, when I was in the studio, this desperately driven process where I often describe that time where I was trying to paint my way to heaven and finally to realize you can't get there from here. And it was in the surrender that I feel the real gift came through. So the work has become at one with life when we tend the details of all things. The tendency of an artist is to do what they do as sacred in a certain level in the studio, and then the rest of their lives are usually a mess. And that was certainly how I did it, and it just doesn't hold up. I mean, that's what I discovered. If it were possible, I think I would have succeeded in that attempt, because I certainly tried hard enough. But it doesn't. And so after giving art up for many years and the way it has come back, it's just part of a totality where you tend all of the things and there are connections that fall into place, a conversation, an object that I might find at our local recycle center will fit perfectly into place or even inspire a whole new piece. And that's the way creation happens now.
Pulling of the lines, the mysterious landings. Can they stay now, just for a time?
This is an old 50s Emerson TV that belonged to Marilyn, my wife's grandfather. And the image inside is her mother, who watched the TV as a young girl as well. And inside are images of birth and death that go around a still Buddha. It has a zoetrope effect.
Departure is not what it seems when the winds are dreams and rocks don't move.
Buttons that I shouldn't push. It comes with the territory. But if we're afraid to take those chances, we miss the best part of what we all really want. I mean, think of all the things we do to have friends, but we sabotage those friendships by holding a certain distance. Our image becomes more important than the vulnerability it takes to break through to new levels together. And communication is very interactive in that when it happens, everyone comes more alive. And there's no ego to claim any piece of it. If there's anything, we can be proud that we allowed ourselves the vulnerability to be available and present with another human being. I call this one feminine balance. So it's aspects of the feminine. This is the virgin, the innocence. And so inside is the dark goddess, the Kali-like figure, which is that aspect of nature that bowls us over. You know, the tower in the Tarot, or the Kali, or the hurricane that wipes out Louisiana. That expression of the feminine. I mean, doing it, there's something about, we all want to be good and think good and look good. And the Bhagavad Gita says goodness is the final obstacle to God. So if it's not goodness, what is it? I mean, who are we? And I think we are the thing, like in alchemy, if you can hold the opposites. What emerges is this transpersonal sense of being that can embrace it all. There's no other way to know the larger truth of who we are if we don't put ourselves in the hands of alchemy. Everything that comes is exactly what we need, unconditionally. And if that is true, how do you find that gift if you can't embrace it in that kind of a way? I call this piece the piano. Hammered and gutted, the piano stands mute, paradox nailed shut. Dead weight waiting, widows walk and pray without a peep. Can't dance, buzz God. There's the option of buzzing God. Most of us want to look like something recognizable, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, whatever. And that's a big danger. Even if it's a position with great integrity, it's still based for the most part on fear of the void, fear of that one-on-one relationship with that totality. So we got bees a couple of years ago and tried real hard to keep them alive, and they didn't make it. So creating this was a kind of embodied prayer for the bees. And our bees that died, I incorporated into the piece. On both sides there are the bees. So basically she's the queen bee leaving the hive, and the box is actually made up of several beehive boxes called supers. So there's something about, again, that proximity to other. How much available and close are we going to be that the real healing comes through? Course in Miracles said something like, when a healing moment happens, it happens for everyone. We don't go in as the knowing ones and work on somebody's healing. It just doesn't work that way. Otherwise, you might as well give them the clinical model. But what is healing but to be close enough, vulnerable enough in a situation where healing can come through? And in that moment, you might say, we all remember God. It's what it's all about. We all remember we're more than just these bodies, these decrepit, decaying bodies. And to me, that kind of involvement, whatever we do, if we're stalking that larger mystery, that's what it's always about. It's about remembering. Because it's not like we're going to take our wisdom and put it in our pocket and live it out in some kind of a way that's absolute. It's more like wisdom is knowing enough to be available for continual healing, continual remembering, because we will forget. We get bored and unhappy and we forget who we are, and then something will inspire us again. How do you live that inspiration? Again, it comes down to living the sacred, living into that relationship with the unknown, and allow it to know you, allow us to know it. This first layer here is the anima, and on the other side is written anima. And this is the animus, and then inside is the union of opposites. I found this large sign carved into the sign. It was an old sign from an animal clinic. It said animal clinic. I had no idea what I was doing. And so when I flipped the third figure over, perfectly situated from animal clinic was anima. So I decided to incorporate anima and turned it into a two-sided door and called it the sacred marriage.
Container Sophia, dark intuitive receiver Sophia, responding with vibrancy to the earth's plight, providing a balance to masculine flight. Matter suffused with its own.
Taken to Italy a couple of years ago, and I was so taken by these ancient confessionals that were like little kids' playhouses that I came home and I wanted to create something that embodied all of the angst and the forgiveness and the faith and the fear and all of it. So this was created out of that. So inside is a saint with a halo, but he changes when you flip this switch here.
Longing for darkness, ravens of Ainsley Dell, Black Madonna, dark moon goddess, queen of the night, redeeming darkness, gifts of the unconscious, integration, fertility, wisdom inside. Longing for darkness, ravens of Ainsley Dell, Black Madonna, dark moon goddess, queen of the night, redeeming darkness, gifts of the unconscious, integration, fertility, wisdom inside.
I think if we live our lives like a prayer, which they are, I mean, we're all praying for something, whether it's like Ramakrishna says, sex and money, or if it's the sacred or the creative or the beauty in life, the love, the connection. If we live our lives like a prayer, then it's all sacred and somehow it all becomes a complete expression. That's what makes us all so unique. If we're not looking around to see how we need to behave by way of templates that other people have created for us, what if we fully accepted that one-on-one relationship with the mystery where there was no reference point but you and that which is sacred? If that were the case, there would be nothing in the world that looked quite like it. This piece I call Nurse Log, which is life coming up out of death. In the Northwest, we have lots of trees and there are clear cuts. And out of the debris and the decay, other trees will grow and feed on the nourishment from the dead tree. And so this mask opens up and reveals a secondary face. Basically, life coming up out of death. That thing that we think life will be good if I can only hold on to this, or if I can only have this, that's usually the thing that fails. Our security, one way or another, gets undermined, and we're devastated. Again, there's either a God of everything or a God of nothing. how do you fully traverse the territory and find the gift in that worst case scenario? And when you can fully cover that ground, what emerges is, in Christianity, the resurrection. For Buddha, it was the moment before enlightenment. But what comes through is like a promise, and it's bedrock. That promise is when that death comes around the cycle, which it will, you'll always remember and fall into the place where you can arrive at that renewal again and again. That's eternity. That moment is the eternal. It's eternal renewal. It's the nature of all things. And we spend our lives buffering ourselves from that moment. Most of us do. We have big bank accounts, we want more. We have big houses, we have 2.1 kids. Everything we have is to buffer ourselves from the void, from that emptiness, when in fact our own true happiness and liberation comes in befriending that emptiness and allow it to emerge with that new way of being. And I think, but who knows, even in literal death, that will happen. I don't know how, but I know in my own journey, everything I walked into that looked like death had a gift.
Than you and me, yeah. Say your prayer for those lost souls who still pray for silver and gold. Please don't do just what they've done, but don't give up on anyone. There's more life to see in all this.
There's something about tending the gifts that come and seeing them with gratefulness that helps us to see how they manifest. And it's the ego that wants them the way they want them. I want the money to buy the neighbor a bicycle because then I will be a good guy in the neighborhood or whatever. And there's something about seeing the way the gift comes through. You just ask for joy and you might find that it's come, but you were so busy doing other things you didn't notice the way it came through. And so you couldn't experience the gratefulness, which brings even more. Whereas the answer to your prayer can be your life, a life of prayer, a life of living the prayer each moment. Where it's not like praying like a beggar, it's like praying like an open reverence to the incredible mystery of possibility at all times.
When you can't even be kind to people who just look at you strange, or weren't so sure.